Okay. Yes, I got it. Okay. So, how many of you where you work have a mission statement? Okay. Tell me about your mission statement. Okay, vision and mission, good.
Our vision is, because what we do is the highway department.
Right.
Is to get people home safely.
Okay,
To their destination safely.
good.
Our mission is to make every decision based on its ability to get 0 deaths on our local road network. And that's our mission.
Very, very good. Okay. Anybody else have a mission statement? Oh, to repeat this. Okay. So they were at the highway department. Their vision, okay, is that there be no accidents, right?
You want to? Here,
Okay.
I can read them.
Oh, okay.
How's that? Our vision is to help all users of Boone County's transportation system to reach their destination safely. Our mission is to eliminate fatal and serious injuries resulting from traffic crashes, making decisions based on their ability to reach 0 deaths in Boone County transportation system.
I'm impressed, okay? I'll tell you why I'm impressed, okay? Not only do they have a mission and a vision, but he knows it, okay? No, seriously, okay? No, I'm telling you, that's a big deal, okay? Because, okay, I will ask this question over and over again. How many of you have a mission and a statement? And I get hands going part way. I think we do. Okay, I think we might have one. I'm not sure if we do. Okay, there is no purpose to a mission and a vision if your employees don't know it. Okay, that's the whole thing. Nancy was talking about on our way here this morning. We left the house at 5 a.m. So on the way here, we were talking about the presentation, and she worked for a Catholic healthcare system, and she said wherever they were, the mission and the vision was on everything. It was on top of all the letterhead. It was on their badges. It was on their name tags. And they repeated it all the time. And they lived that vision and that mission because it was there all the time. Most of us, okay, our organizations might have a vision and a mission, but we don't even know what it is, okay? And so it's important as leaders that you become aware of your mission and your vision so that you can impart that to your employees. Because that was there to say where you're going, what you're doing. Just like the highway department over here. I mean, if I had planted you, I couldn't have come up with a better one, okay?
So we could have bet that there wouldn't be one person in here who would know. I told Luann this morning, this healthcare organization I work for, I was so impressed because when I went to work there, they handed me my badge and they handed me a lanyard with a plastic envelope and a card. One side was the mission statement, the other side was the vision statement. And we all wore it. And as Luann said, it was in our handbook, it was on everything. And then anytime we had a new initiative or we were taking on a project, we had a meeting and we sat down. How does this illustrate our values? How does this carry out our mission? And we debated that. Does it or doesn't it? And if it does, how? And it was such a part of the organization. It was just like we didn't do anything without looking at that. Then when that organization merged and I lost my job, I wound up in a manufacturing plant in human resources. And I walked in the entrance of the building and there was this beautiful wooden plaque over the reception desk with the mission statement. But the whole time I was at that company, which was about 4 years, I never heard anybody refer to a mission statement or the values. And I would bet that there isn't one person in that company who could tell you what the mission statement was. So the fact that you knew it is just absolutely amazing, because we all see them, the plaque on the wall, or we see it somewhere, but nobody ever focuses on that. But it is a critical part of an organization and of a leader to know, what is the mission? What are we here for?
Correct. Okay. So, what do leaders do to get back on track here a little bit? Okay. And this is a part where this alignment and this direction and everything, I'm going to go over quickly. Okay. Boring. Okay. I will talk a little bit about motivation, because I think that's a real important part of being of leaders. And it is important as leaders that we do align with the organization, that we align with the mission and the vision, and that we impart that mission and vision. And I suggest that you go back and check and see if you have a vision and a mission, and learn it and try to partake in it, okay, and pass it on, because you probably do. You just aren't aware of it. Okay, so Nancy, do you have the clicker? Yeah. We're going to go ahead quite a bit. So I'm going to, setting direction is just that you know where you're going again, and it's going to have a lot to do with the vision. Okay, so knowing where you're going and how you're going to get there is really that vision and that mission. So that mission statement and vision statement should basically show you where you're going, and that's important that you know that. So let's just kind of pass over this. I want to get to motivation. Okay, so I think that as leaders, motivation is one of the most important things that we do, and that is motivating our employees, the people that we are leading. Okay, so just as direction setting identifies an appropriate path for movement, and just as effective alignment gets people moving down the right path, successful motivation ensures that we will have the energy to overcome those obstacles. So I just think that all of us as click. Okay, that all of us as good leaders, okay, one of the most important things is, how do we motivate our employees? Okay, and this is going to be different probably in each of your different departments, and the kind of staff that you have that you need to motivate, or what you need to do. And as I said earlier, it doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be a TV set if everybody does X, Y, Z. It doesn't have to be, there's going to be extra in your paycheck, because a lot of these things and a lot of organizations that we talk to, they don't have the money to do those kinds of things. I mean, if you're talking to one with nice deep pockets, then yes, they can motivate employees by offering financial rewards and this kind of thing. So most of us, and especially in government, okay, we don't have all that extra money to say, oh, we're going to pad your pocket, or we're going to give you a big, send you on a vacation or whatever. My daughter worked in medical device sales, and, if you were one of the top salespeople in that, you got wonderful things. She took me on a trip to Rome, okay? I mean, to Italy for 10 days, staying at the top hotels and the whole business, okay? I mean, they have deep pockets, okay? But most of us don't have these kind of pockets, okay? So we don't have something to offer our employees and saying, well, if you do this, this, and this, this is what you get. So we're going to have to think of some other things. So in terms of providing motivation, first of all, by all means, we have to set that example ourselves. So we have to, if it's being energetic and it's being hardworking, we have to do that ourselves. If employees find that we're sitting behind our desk and we're talking on the phone and we're playing solitaire on our computers or whatever, okay, then hey, you know what? They're going to follow that. So, they're going to set by example. And the other part of it is that by motivating people, if we get cohesive teams going, people that get along well together, that are going to work together as a group, is really good. And again, just kind of supervising and supporting that whole role and what they're doing. And then the end of it is rewards. But as I said, it doesn't have to be monetary. It can be, I've seen parking places employee of the month. They get the really good parking place right at the front door. They don't have to walk the parking lot. I've seen things like, maybe somebody just wears a badge for the day, okay, or the week or something like that. Pardon me?
Gold stars.
The gold stars, yes, but it points out to other employees. Okay, I always have to laugh at New Avenues. We have the opposite. Okay, but it produces fun. Okay, so it makes everybody cohesive. So we have what we call the slotted spoon, okay? And the slotted spoon is for people that do stupid things, okay? Now, kind of fun stupid things. They're not really stupid, but they do stupid things, okay? So we have gone out and we have bought a slotted spoon, and it has a big silver bow on it, okay? And it gets hung on your door of your office when you have done something really kind of stupid. But what it does is that somebody will stop in and go, "Oh, Nancy, what did you do?" Okay, and then everybody gets a joke about it. Okay, so again, I don't know if it's motivating. Nobody wants to be the stupid person, okay, doing the stupid thing. But what it does is it provides that camaraderie of like.
And the laughs. Let me give an example before you think that this is something really rude that we do in a behavioral health company. But I was the one that got the first slotted spoon because we had a benefit fair in another town. And I'm running around trying to get all the stuff ready to take to this benefit fair. And I loaded it all up, and at this time we were on the 22nd floor of a building downtown South Bend. I bring it down the elevator, I pull it out into the garage, I run and I get my car, I get in the car, I drive off, I go to the next town, and I go to open up the trunk to set up the stuff, and I had left it in the parking garage. So here's the benefit fair, everybody's there, I show up and I have nothing for my table. So I had to call back to the office and have somebody from there load it up and run it out to me. So they were giving me a hard time about that. When I got back from the benefit fair, there was the slotted spoon because it was just like, where is your mind?
It just goes through, okay.
So it's got to be a joke that, we would pass the slotted spoon around anytime anybody did something.
Okay, so next. Oh. Keep going. You went backwards. Okay. So leaders must manage the internal factors. Okay, so of course that's going to be salary, working conditions, and like other rewards that the municipality sets up. Okay, so in a way you have some input into that a little bit. Okay, but it's a process where you're a part of it, but you're not the final decision maker and all of those kinds of things. But then to promote change in the motivators, you can set up a sense of responsibility by giving somebody some kind of extra, perhaps it's a title, maybe it's a just a responsibility that is, it kind of singles them out as, going one step more than somebody else has. And with that is a sense of achievement. So the more that I am motivated that way, and the more that I am rewarded for and recognized for my achievement, as a leader, what that does is motivates that employee, and it motivates me to work even harder. Boy, I feel really good about that I've been singled out for what I have done, okay, and my achievements, because I've worked hard for them and somebody's recognized them. So this is that soft part of all of that that doesn't need a reward, okay? It's just a personal kind of thing. So effective leaders empower, and empowered people are motivated people. This is just an example of somebody that I could give as a really good example of is Bill Gates, and this is a quote: "As we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others." And that's what we're going to talk about now, is that empowering others, how important that is. So most important for leaders is to make leaders, is really your role as a leader. Okay, so empowerment is shifting decision making to all possible levels of the organization, improve quality by giving employees more control of how things are done, and kind of flatten that organization. So instead of having, this is the decision makers are on top and the workers are down here and there's no in between. It's really bringing it all together so everybody has a decision in the process. Everybody can feel good about the process, and you can all still be leading, okay, but you're leading from a different aspect of all of this. So it's my understanding that last year when you had this leadership that you talked about the directing, the participating, and the delegating. Was anyone here last year before it? Just one. Okay. Is that what you covered? Okay. I'm going to go, well, since there's only one, I might spend a little bit more time on it than I had anticipated. But there are 3 different styles of actually leadership. And what's important about those is not only your style, but who you're leading. Okay, so this comes down to more of who you're leading than your style of leading. So what group is it, and what kind of skills that they have. So in the directing style, you're telling your employees what you want done, how you want it done, where it's to be done, and what's to be done. And you're supervising closely to ensure that those directions are followed. So this is a group of employees who need this. That they can't take on that role themselves without a lot of direction. So in that particular case, you're going to have to do all of these things, and we call that a directing style. And each of you will have to weigh your departments that way, or maybe just your employees that way. So you're going to have different employees with different skill levels, okay, and the ability to maybe not move on, but do a good job at that one level, but you might have to do all of these kinds of things. The second one is called participating style, and it involves employees in telling them what to do and how to do it, but you're giving more information in terms of letting them sit down and talk about how we can do this. There's some recommendations. So these are employees that don't have to be directed quite as much, but they still need clear direction, but they're able to discuss with you. Well, you can discuss with them. Do you think that you can do this, or how can you do this, or what direction would you take in this? And so this is kind of that midway level of leadership with your employees. And then we have the delegating style, and this requires employees they're more mature, they're more competent, they're motivated, they're accountable, they're problem solvers, they're decision makers. So instead of I'm the boss, okay, what you've been able to do with these is that these are potential leaders. And so then what you're going to do with them is okay, I'm one slide. Is to let them make a lot of decisions with your supervision. Let them kind of run with it. So this is that employee that you're going to say, gee, I need this report and I need it tomorrow. And you know that they'll know what to do and how to do it, and you'll get it tomorrow. So that's that. Okay, then when we actually deal with employees, I happen to be a lion, as I told you. So lions are very assertive people. Okay. Well, there's a fine line sometimes between being assertive and being aggressive. Okay. So other people think of lions / me, okay, as being very aggressive. Okay. I see myself being assertive. So this is a very fine line. So if you are, and a lot of leaders are lions, okay, that you need to be very careful in what is assertive and what is aggressive behavior when you're talking to and dealing with other employees. So just assertiveness is to put forth one's needs and views confidently and directly. And again, Nancy's going to talk about that in the communication style. To stand up for oneself without wielding a metaphorical weapon and always considering other people's point of view. Okay, so it's being assertive. As opposed to being aggressive, reminiscent of the Stone Age, the ones with the biggest clubs, okay, and grub have the best caves, so I'm going to, you better do what I'm saying, or, okay, that kind of thing. These forceful bosses or employee dominate others, and they can just sap all that morale. There's nothing worse than working for somebody that just treats you like that. So for you as leaders, if you are in fact lions, or maybe not even lions, when you think of asserting your leadership, just remember or think about that it's not aggressive, but that it's assertive. So aggressive behaviors would be those people that interrupt and talk over others. They always have a better idea. Well, let me see, this kind of thing. They glare and stare at others. This is a part of communication, okay, that Nancy's going to talk about, and that's why that communication piece is so important. Intimidate by expression and body language, controls group and reaches goals but hurts other in the process. So, maybe they get what's done, but they walk over everyone doing it. So the next project that has to happen is these people that got walked all over say, I'm not doing it, okay? I'll pretend I'm doing it or whatever, but I'm not doing it. Or maybe they're doing it without enthusiastic approach to it, and there's no creativity there, and they don't give, they just don't give their all, which you want. And then we have the passive behaviors. Okay, so this is, you've heard of passive aggressive behaviors. So this is the opposite of that aggressive behavior, but also not acceptable, and that is employees that just, they don't express their feelings, they don't express their needs, and leaders do the same thing, okay? So instead of giving that message, this is what needs to happen and why it needs to happen, it's kind of like, you're not giving that message. Others do not know how you feel about it, okay? Because you're being very passive about this. It oftentimes, these are signs of weak leaders that, other people are walking all over them. And oftentimes that person becomes a victim because other people see, we've all heard about bullying. This would be a target for a bully. because this person is not speaking up for themselves. Their body language is kind of very passive. And if there's a bully in the crowd, this is who the bully's going to go after. Now, assertive behavior, okay, and this is good behavior, okay, so this is what leaders should be doing, is they speak openly and use conversational tones. So they're not screaming, they're not raising their voice, they're not, again, Nancy's going to talk about that in communication. They make good eye contact. Their expression matches the message. Again, a communication piece, okay? So if I'm saying something like, I really respect you, however, okay, and my body is going like this, and my eyebrows are going like this, it's not given the same thing that my words are saying, okay? So that's what we talk about. It participates in a group without, and reaches goals without hurting, without hurting others. So it's, I'm okay and you're okay. Okay, this part that I'm going to discuss now, and I'm getting to the end of mine, but I like this a whole lot. This is kind of, instead of what we just talked about in the participating and the directing and the delegating styles, these are different ways of leadership. And has anyone heard of John Maxwell? He has written several leadership. He's considered kind of the guru in leadership, okay? This is actually from his book. I like it a whole lot. So what he talks about, and what I'm going to kind of review today, is that you start at down at 1 on the bottom here at position, and you go up to 5, the pinnacle. Okay. Now most of us don't even reach 5. Okay, we're still good leaders, but pinnacle is the very best. And the number 1 position is where we all start. So I want to start with that. So what that means is that just because you're elected, okay, just because you've been put in that position, you've been called a supervisor, you've been called what, doesn't mean that you're a leader. People follow you because they have to. You're the boss, and they have to follow you. And leadership basically comes with job title. So there's not a lot of respect here. It's basically, that's my boss. If I want to keep my job, if I want my paycheck, I better do what that person says. So they're bosses and not leaders is basically what they are. And it's the only level that does not require ability and effort to achieve. So it's something where you're put there. And anybody can be appointed to that position. So that's why it's on the bottom of the scale. Okay, so then we have the next one, which is permission. And this has to do with relationships. So people follow you because they want to. They like you. So they want to do this. It's based entirely on relationships. They like working with you. They respect you. Leaders find out who their people are. So they kind of go. They'll navigate to the group that kind of goes along with what they want to do, and that they think is going to follow them. And followers find out who their leaders are. So everybody kind of makes that match. You know, I think I'd like to work with Nancy because, or, I don't want to work with Luann. She's too aggressive. I want to, work with someone else. And the last part of it is you can like people without leading them, but you can't lead people without liking them. So we've gone up a little level on here. So we've gone up from, this is my job, okay, I've been promoted to it, I've been elected to it, and, you know, there's no responsibility here. I'm just the boss. To the second one, which is permission. The third one is production. People follow you because of what you have done for your county, your city, or whatever, your job, okay? That people respect you. They follow you because they see you as a leader. And so they respect that, and so they follow you. So this is a good place to be. This is a place where leaders have created a nice work environment. They get things done. They respect people, and they become known as good leaders. There's a lot of credibility here. People follow because of what you mean to them. So they buy into everything here. And work gets done, morale improves, turnover decreases, and goals are achieved. So you can see how important it is to at least get to this production phase and being a leader. That's the third one, okay? What we all want to achieve is getting to the fourth level for sure, and that's called people development. That's people follow you because of what you have done for them. Leaders change the lives of people. You empower people. You develop employees to become leaders. That's one of the really important things. A true leader develops people to become a leader. They're not intimidated by somebody saying, oh man, that person's got good skills. They might get my job, okay? Leaders empower, they don't worry about that. Teamwork reaches high level because of deep relationships. So the whole group is working together toward that goal. And performance increases because there's more leaders on the team. So this is developing leader after leader after leader. This is a really, really good leadership position that you'd want to be in. The pinnacle is about 2%, I believe, is the statistic of all leaders. So this, the pinnacle being the pinnacle, okay? People follow you because of who you are and what you represent. So an example right now, okay, that I can think of is I always use like Mother Teresa or something like that. I mean, that would be, a really good one. In South Bend, right now, we are all extremely enthusiastic about our mayor. So I know you've all heard of Mayor Pete, okay, and Mayor Pete's running for president. We all love Mayor Pete, okay. So what this has done is we all want to be a Mayor Pete, okay. I mean, he's been a great leader. We want to be Mayor Pete, okay. So this is kind of, we want to follow somebody like this. This level requires not only effort and skill, but a high level of talent. So we might be good leaders, but we can always be better leaders, so this gets us to that role. Pinnacle leaders develop people to become level 4 leaders. So level 4 was what we just talked about, that we all want to get to, production, I believe it is. And pinnacle leaders gain a positive reputation and create a legacy. So we talk about Mother Teresa. We talk about, these are the kind of people that people want to, they want to follow, they want to be like, and etc. That of course is where we would all like to get, and as I said, about 2% of people get there. But if we got to level 4, we would really, we would be all excellent leaders. Okay, so. But would like to do now is I'd like to kind of ask a question, pass it around. Think about this for a minute. In your mind, okay, and this does not have to be, this could be your mother, it could be your grandmother, it could be a neighbor, a teacher, it could be somebody famous, okay. Think about who you think about as a pinnacle leader. I'm going to pass this around. Okay, I'll give you a couple minutes to think about this. Somebody that you think about as a pinnacle leader. Ready? Okay. You got it right off the bat here.
This is kind of slightly different. I came in contact with a girl in Washington, D.C., and she's a good chunk years younger than I am. But because of her enthusiasm, her positive attitude, her know-how, her just inner light, she became and she could become an amazing leader. So I'm hoping to see great things from her, and I've been in contact with her since I moved back, and she's just one of those people I want to become, and I've told her that. And it's not, her motivation is awe-inspiring, but she always brought people with her. She was always encouraging, she was always uplifting, she was always like, hey, what can we do? What can I do to help you? What do you want to do to help yourself? And I'm like, I'm going to be like you.
That's perfect. That's exactly that. That's exactly. Okay. Have you thought about yours?
No.
No. Okay. Anybody else? Not yet. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, at 2:00 in the morning when you can't sleep, will you? Just think about. Oh, here's somebody with that. Okay.
She's from our area, and she started out at as a county commissioner, has worked her way up. She's inspired people, and that's Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch.
Oh, great. Okay. Good. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, as I said, about 2:00 this morning, if you can think of it.
I would say our fire chief on our volunteer department. He has brought great things to the department and continues to constantly make us a better department and a better group of people.
Okay. What has he brought to the department?
He's instilled a lot of integrity. The rules and regulations, even though they've been there before in the past, he has enforced them no matter what, and sometimes it's made it harder on others, and we didn't like those decisions, but we've all come to respect why those decisions were made, even though maybe we didn't know at the time about that. So, and he has an analogy that he uses, and we've kind of adopted it to carry on, and he tells the story about the pig and the chicken. And there's been a storm in town, and there's no power and stuff, so but the fire department is able to use their generators and house people, and every morning they fix breakfast, and then everybody goes out and tries to clean up, their house and area to help the community. And one day the pig and chicken are walking down the street, and the chicken says, I should donate some eggs tomorrow for breakfast. That'd be a good thing I could do. And the chicken looks at the pig, and she says, well, you could donate some bacon. And the pig doesn't say anything for a little while, and they're walking down the street, and the chicken says, well, aren't you going to donate some bacon tomorrow? If I do, I'll do my eggs. And the pig looks at the chicken, he goes, but yours is a volunteer thing. If I decide to make bacon in the morning, then that's a commitment.
Very good. That's nice. Okay. And he goes by that, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's great. Okay, good example. Okay, I don't know what. Okay, Nancy's going to get started with hers, and maybe a half hour in. If you need another break, we'll do that. Okay, maybe you don't need a break. So, okay.
I would just like to mention one leader that has risen on the kind of the world stage is Juan Guaido in Venezuela. And I don't know if any of you have been following the situation in Venezuela, but I lived there for a few years, and I have family there, so it's a pretty sensitive situation. But for the last 20-some years, they have been under practically a dictatorship. And the situation is so bad now that people are fleeing the country any way they can get out. There's no food, there's no medicine. It's very violent, it's very dangerous. And for years they've been trying to get this first Hugo Chavez, but then he died of cancer, and then his self-appointed successor is a Nicolas Maduro, and it's just really an evil dictatorship. And this young man, Juan Guaido, has risen up and is leading the people in a charge against him, trying to get him out of the country and to restore the democracy that they used to have. And he is a target for assassination, but he doesn't care. He's out there and he says, somebody must do this, somebody must lead the people, we must change Venezuela. And so I look at a situation like that, and this is a young man who has just come up and has decided somebody needs to step up. And I just think he's going to be a fantastic leader. Hopefully he survives long enough. But, those are the kinds of people that in dire times, and if you look through history, there have always been leaders who have risen up to help and to lead the people. And you in your positions, you have opportunities, like when you had the flood in your office, that you had to rise up and lead the employees through the flood and to find a safe refuge to continue on your work. So we all, maybe on not such a grand scale as Juan Guaido, but we all have those opportunities in our lives and in our careers to step up and be leaders.
Your communication pieces.
Yeah, okay. So now I'm going to talk about communication. Have any of you ever been in a situation where you've been given instructions to do something, but you didn't understand it, and you were kind of frustrated? You knew you were supposed to do something, but you really didn't know how you were supposed to do it, and you weren't given enough information to get it done? Has anybody been in that position? Yeah, I think many of us have. And it is really very difficult, and it's hard. And then the thing is, if you don't get it done and you don't do it right, then it comes back on you. Why didn't you? But a lot of times we are not given the information and the materials and the direction that we need. And so as leaders, it's important to think about those times that you've been in those situations and make sure that you are giving directions and instructions to your people with intention, so that you are able to clearly communicate that to them and make sure that they understand it. And I had a situation like that several years ago. I was in a human resources job, for a company that I had never worked in this kind of company before. I didn't know anything about the company. I show up, I wasn't given a tour, I wasn't given any information other than, here is your desk, and you're going to be doing human resource work, and we're glad to have you. And then my boss, whose office was next door, this is how she would communicate with me. She was high energy, and the president of the company was down the hall, and she was constantly going back and forth because they were building a lot of things for this company. They were building a human resource department. They were building all sorts of things. My office would be right here. She'd run by my office and say, "Oh, Nancy, I want you to get we need to hire an engineer for Department 36, and get back with me." And so I'd be sitting in here, and I'm like, what? What is Department 36? What kind of an engineer? Where are the job descriptions? Who do I call to get the information? She's gone. And so I'm sitting there, and I have nobody to go to. So I have to wait until she shows up again, and then I go, "Excuse me." And so for me, it was a very difficult job. Eventually, I figured it out. But this is how I had to do it, is that I would get these instructions on the fly, and then I'd sit there and try to, okay, now she said engineer, and she said department. What was that department? And eventually I did do it, but it was very, very difficult. And I think of those times so that when I give someone instructions, I think, let me not do that to someone else. And I once had a writing teacher who said, when you write something, write as if you're telling somebody something from scratch that they don't know anything about it. And I'm sure all of you have had maybe an instance where you've gotten instructions, an instruction manual to put something together or make something work, and there's something missing in the instructions and you can't figure it out. It's because the people who write those instructions know it so well that they assume other people know certain things too, and so they don't think to put every step in the process. So that leaves you sitting there, and I had a desk one time that says, glue this here. Well, they left out the part you were supposed to do before you glued the leg on. And so then it was glued on, and now it was a mess because I couldn't get back in there, and that part of the instructions was missing. So we're gonna do a little, activity, and I need 2 volunteers, one of them with shoelaces. If anybody's got any shoes with shoelaces. All right, be courageous. You do? Are you the only one in this whole room with shoelaces? All right, I need another person. You don't have to have shoelaces, but I need 2 people. So you come up here. All right, Commissioner, thank you. Now who would like, okay, good. All right. So now the activity is your Kathy. Kathy is going to explain to the commissioner, could you please untie your shoes?
You're not allowed to throw them.
No.
They're untied. Both of
Okay.
them or just one?
Both of them. Yeah.
Accomplished.
Okay. All right, Kathy.
That's ought to be good.
Now, you are going to instruct him on how to tie his shoes. He doesn't know anything about tying shoes. And you are going to explain to him how to tie his shoes. Step by step. Give her the mic. Oh.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling the Shoe Helpline.
That's my pleasure. I've got the shoes on.
That is great to know, sir. My name is Kathy, and yours is?
I'm Ken.
Hi, Ken. Are the shoes on the correct feet?
Yes, I believe they are.
Wonderful. Now, if you will bend over and pick the right shoe that's on your foot, pick up the shoe strings and pull them straight up so that they are tight.
Both of them?
Yes, both shoestrings for the one shoe.
Oh, okay. I've pulled them up. Now what do I do?
Okay, you take one shoestring and tuck it under the other shoestring and
Which shoe?
pull. The one,
I don't understand. Which shoestring? There's 2 of them.
take the shoestring in your right hand
Okay.
and put it under the around the shoestring on your left hand.
Put it around my left hand.
No, not your hand. It's the shoestring that's in your left hand.
Across the shoestring. All right.
That is correct, sir.
Got my hands crossed now. Now what do I do?
Pull on the shoestring so that the part that is crossed will go to the bottom of the string, so they'll be on the top of your shoes.
Well, when I'm pulling them, they're up to the top and I'm down at the bottom. Do I have to put my right hand down towards the shoe?
Yes, sir. Try it that way.
Okay. All right. What do I do with this left hand that's up here?
Wave it in the air.
I'm waving it.
Okay. Do we have your shoestring should be crossed at this point and at the top of your shoe so that we can get ready to make a bow.
Well, not really, but I'll cross my left hand over to my right side. Now I got the laces crossed.
That is awesome. You're doing such a great job, sir.
Thank you. Give me a gold star.
Were you able to complete that step, sir?
Yeah, I got them crossed.
Have you ever called the shoe hotline before, sir?
This is the first time.
Great. I love helping people with their endeavors.
I appreciate it. I got to go to work. If I don't get these tied pretty soon, I'm going to be late.
Okay. Do you still have a shoestring in your right hand? And do you still have a shoestring in your left hand? Okay. Let go of the shoestring in your right hand.
Let go of it.
Yes, let go of it.
All right.
Now,
I got the left one in my left hand.
that's good. Hang on to it.
All right, I got it.
Now, you may need both hands, but the left hand, the shoestring in the left hand, kind of fold it over in half so that it makes like the top part of a bow.
All right.
Okay?
You realize how hard this is with somebody with a pot belly?
Well, just think of the exercise, sir. You can that will be included free of charge.
I sure need it. Thank you.
Now, hold the bow in your left hand that you have made.
My left hand.
Uh-huh. Pick up the right shoestring in the right hand
Got it.
and wrap it around one time the bow
All right.
and gently pull it through, and you should have a beautiful little bow on the top of your shoes.
I do.
Very nice. We've only got one more left, sir.
Okay, now what?
If you have pulled the bow down tight, you may let go of the shoestrings. And we'll be moving to shoe number 2, the left foot. Are you good, sir, with doing your left foot, or would you like some more assistance?
I would like. I've had a pleasure talking with you this morning. I would let you walk me through the left one also, except we may not have time for that today.
Okay, done? Okay. Very good. Both of you were excellent. You see how hard that is?
It's very hard.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I can. Okay. So thank you very much. And we did not set this up in advance. They volunteered right here. So, but that was very good. Let me get these on.
I'm surprised you didn't ask for his credit card.
Okay, we're going to talk about communication. And as Commissioner Ken had been saying earlier this morning, how important communication skills are for leaders. They're important for everyone, but particularly for leaders. And you need to have good communication skills in all aspects of your life, not just in dealing with your employees, but you have to have it everywhere all the time. It is just so important. There are so many misunderstandings and problems created by lack of communication or very poor communication. So what is communication? It's the process that allows us to interact with other people. And these are some common forms of communication. Can you think of anything else? Any other forms of communication?
Body language, eye expressions,
Yeah.
furrowed brows. I mean, what 80% of communication is nonverbal.
Right, right. So we communicate so many different ways. And then we also have, in addition to speaking and writing, you know, there's now social media. There's now social media. People are communicating through all sorts of forms of social media and Twitter and texting, all kinds of things. Okay, this is the basic process of how communication works. There's an individual who has a message, and that person, the sender, is the person who has got a message, sending to a receiver, and then expecting feedback. The receiver gives feedback that goes back to the sender so that the sender understands that the receiver has received the message and understands the message. Now, what interferes with our communication is the noise. And noise is anything that distracts us from that message. And it could be people talking out in the hall. It could be the elevator. It could be somebody sitting next to you who's maybe playing music or is pouring water and the ice cubes are jangling. So anything that interrupts with this process we call noise. And a lot of times in our society today, there is just so much noise. It's amazing that any communication really is finished, is completed accurately. Okay, so the sender is the person who conveys a thought, an idea, or an experience to another person. And the message, this is pretty important. It must be concise. Eliminate unnecessary information. This is one of the things that gets in the way when we're communicating. We give so much information. You know, a lot of times you ask a question of someone, or you ask for a yes or a no, or a brief piece of information, and you get the whole history of what that person did that day. And so, I mean, don't you see that happening? And you're like, all I want to know is this. I don't need to know everything else that happens. So keep in mind that when you are communicating, that eliminate things that are unnecessary, because the receiver, the person you're talking to, is trying to process all of this. And you want them to be able to focus on your key points. What is it that you want them to know? Now we have the message with an attitude. So I'm going to ask 3 different people to say this. Who would like to volunteer for the first sentence? Okay. Okay, do you want to do the second one?
I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid.
See, the same sentence, but depending on where the emphasis is, it changes the meaning. Okay, now when we're going to communicate with someone, particularly with a complicated or a lengthy message, the best way to do that so that we can make sure that they are getting the message is to let them know that this is going to be a long conversation and briefly explain the intent of the conversation. So if you have something really important to tell someone and there's some detail involved, don't just hit them up in the hallway and say, hey, I really got to tell you about blah, blah, blah. They may be on their way, maybe they're in a hurry to get to the bathroom, maybe they're expecting a phone call, and so their mind is focused on something else, and they're only half listening to what you are telling them. So if you've got a lengthy message or something that is really important, the best way to do is to set it up in advance with that person, saying, I have to talk to you about this particular issue. Is this a good time? If not, what would be a good time? So that you're not losing that message with the person's mind on something else, or maybe that person doesn't have the amount of time that you need to be able to communicate completely. And then the receiver, if you are the receiver of the message, you have an employee coming to you and giving you a message, acknowledge, listen and acknowledge what you hear the speaker saying. Even if you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree, you acknowledge that you have heard it. At this point, you don't need to express your views, you're just acknowledging. And the fact that you acknowledge the message does not mean that you approve of it or agree with the speaker's ideas, opinions, or actions. Your ability to listen and then acknowledge what the speaker said allows the speaker to feel the satisfaction of being understood. So a lot of times people come and they'll start to tell us something, and right away we're interrupting and like, no, we're not going to do it that way. Give the person an opportunity to state their case, to explain what it is that they would like you to know. You acknowledge that you have heard them, and then the conversation can proceed. And here's some tips for active listening. We don't do a very good job in our culture with listening, and part of it is because of all the noise. But we really weren't trained well to listen. And a lot of times you'll hear things, and then later on, now what was it she said? What time was I supposed to do that? Now where was I supposed to go? Because we were only half listening. So tips for active listening, it would be to face the speaker and maintain eye contact. Lean forward to show that you're being attentive and through your body language and that you're attuned to that person, and minimize your internal and external distractions. So if the door is open and there's a lot of noise, close the door. Or if you're thinking about, what you're going to cook for dinner tonight, think, okay, I'm going to put that on the back burner. I need to focus on this particular person. I need to listen to what they are saying. Listen from the heart. Be empathetic. Be compassionate. If somebody is coming to you with a problem or an issue, listen from the heart and then respond appropriately. Don't interrupt them and keep an open mind. Ask clarifying questions. If you don't really completely understand their point, ask about that. And then write it down. If it's something that you need to know, write it down. Now, there are a lot of barriers that we have to listening, past experiences. So let's say we've had a run-in with a particular person, or a person that we kind of see as maybe, a busybody or someone who's very annoying. So when they approach us to talk with us with a message, right away we set up the roadblock. Oh no, here he comes again. It's going to be the same old thing all over again. So, we have these reactions. Or maybe we are worried about something or angry about something at the same time someone approaches us, so we are really not receptive. We may have individual biases and prejudice. Maybe it's somebody who doesn't speak English well, and it's just too hard to have to listen to them, and so we have this bias. Oh no, I can't understand what they're saying. Or maybe, this is a big thing that we hear a lot about now, shrinking attention span. Particularly with younger people, there's just not much of an attention span. So we're finding more and more that people are not able to concentrate, not able to focus for very long periods of time. Okay, nonverbal. We had mentioned nonverbal communication. And this is where we do most of our communicating. What you hear, tone of voice, vocal clarity, and verbal expressiveness is 40% of the message. What you see or feel, facial expression, dress and grooming, posture, eye contact, and touch, is 50% of the message. So this is how we are communicating. Only 10% of our message, of our communication, is actually through our words. So, which is amazing. And the thing is about, with the nonverbal communication, we are usually not conscious that we're being communicated that way. So we may be listening to someone's words, but we are processing all the data that's coming at us, which is their tone of voice. Like we said in the 3 sentences before, I didn't say you were stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. So what we're hearing, the message we're hearing is, where do we put the focus on those words? So we're hearing a message, and we are seeing someone's facial expression, their body language. We can tell if they're angry. We can tell if they're annoyed. We can tell if they're happy. So all of that data we are programming all of that data to get that message. And very little of it, only 10%, are the words that this individual is speaking. So you need to keep in mind also for yourself, watch your own body language, because you are telling people something through your body language. So an employee comes to you and they've got a problem, and you're like, okay, tell me about the problem. So what are you really telling them? You said, yeah, tell me about the problem, but what are you really telling them? Yeah, I really don't want to hear it, This is annoying. So that's, we all have to be careful. And a lot of times this is stuff we're not even conscious of it. We don't realize how we are the signals that we are giving off when we are communicating with people.
I always like to give the example. I've had to train myself because my facial expressions say it all. and it's just instinctive with me. And for years I would say something my husband would say something back and I'd say, I didn't say that. And he'd say to me, you don't have to. Okay? You said it anyway. And it was correct, okay? So now I know when I get into a difficult situation, I'm going to have that uncomfortable conversation, or somebody's really irritated me, but I don't want them to know they've irritated me or something. What I will actually kind of take a step back and say to myself, watch your face, okay? Because I just, I will roll my eyes, my eyebrows will go up, all of those kinds of things. So it's basically something I've learned to train myself, that when I'm saying this, that not only are my words saying it, but the rest of me is saying it too. And sometimes it takes training.
And you can look in the mirror, you can practice in front of the mirror. Say, okay, I think this is what I did, what did it look like? Okay, nonverbal techniques for having a positive message: maintain eye contact, look relaxed, face the speaker, nod your head to show understanding without interrupting, use clear, strong voice volume, and smile when appropriate and minimal frowning. So these are some of the things that we can do. Again, you have to train yourself. My son is really funny. A lot of times we'll be driving in the car, and I am thinking really hard, and apparently, like Luann, it's all over my face, and he'll look at me and goes, Mom, you're talking to yourself again in your head. So, because he can see me having the whole conversation from the look on my face, and I'm not even aware of it. Okay, here's some other interesting things. Nonverbal behavior, body language. Personal space is the physical distance between people. What do you all know about physical space? Anybody know anything about it? Go ahead.
I came back from the East Coast. East Coast physical spaces is like this.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana is more like this.
Yeah, anybody else? Okay, physical space, a personal space is pretty much a big deal in the United States. Luann, can you come here? Is that we like our space. Like if I go up to talk to Luann and I'm like this, she's going to be uncomfortable, I'm going to be uncomfortable. We typically in the United States, we like to have a little bit of space around ourselves. We like to look at each other. We don't like people coming right up into our face. But in some cultures, they do. Like if you stand back like this, it's considered, being distant, not being friendly. So in the Latin culture, they talk very close. They're right next to each other. Mid-Easterners, the same thing. They like to have that really close contact. And so if you're in a conversation, they may be right in front of you like this. And you're just kind of like, and so they're thinking, what's the matter? What's the matter? Because for us, that's too close. We like to have a little bit of space. But it's something that you need to be aware of, because being county employees, government employees, I'm sure you are running into people from all different backgrounds, from all different cultures. And so it's very important to be aware. This is a very diverse country, so we got to be aware of what are some of the cultural norms of other people. And our facial expressions, as Luann said, powerful signaling tool. Eye contact, posture. Again, like I said, okay, let me hear about your problem, Or you see, the other thing is people like this. That's kind of like, kind of back off, stay away from me. Gestures. One thing about gestures, a lot of hand signs have meaning in different cultures. So if you're dealing with people from different countries, you've got to be very careful what you're doing with your hands. In Italy, for example, you can have an entire conversation without opening your mouth with your hands. But there are a lot of different signs and things that we might do that it doesn't mean anything here, but it means something very bad in another culture. So we have to be real careful about our body language. Has anybody had any experiences like that? You have?
Yes.
Do you want to tell us?
I mean, she still does it. She's a good friend of mine, but when she talks to you, she has to look right in your eyes like this, you know. And I've even said, whoa, back up just a little bit, you know. And she's like, oh, I know. And then she's hand signaler. She's just, she's an emotional talker. So at first it was like, whoa, yeah, it was kind of like that. She was my boss when I first met her.
Oh, wow.
And then now we're friends, but yes, she still does it to people.
Okay. I did not know that about the East Coast, that they did that. Huh. Interesting. Okay, now difficult conversations. Again, because of your jobs and because you are leaders, you are going to have difficult conversations a lot, I would imagine. And so the thing is, most people do not like conflict. We don't like to deal with conflict. We try to shy away from conflict if we can possibly avoid conflict. But there are times when you're going to have to deal with situations, with people who are being difficult or where there's a problem. So now if you have somebody and there is an issue and this person is very upset, medicated or under the influence of a substance, there's no point in having a serious conversation because they're not going to be able to follow it. You're not going to be successful in getting the message to them. And you want to avoid a confrontational style. You may be very angry and upset with this person for something they've done, but you've got to be careful as a leader. How are you managing this? You know, you want to get the message to the person, but if you're confrontational, what are they going to do? Are they going to listen? No, they're going to be defensive. They're going to be like this. They're going to be blocking you off. So you also want to take a person's age and ability to understand into consideration. So you have to take account of the person you're dealing with. If it's a young person or a very old person or maybe someone who has got some mental challenges, they're not going to be able to understand the same way that someone else is. So you have to adapt your style toward the person that you're dealing with. And you want to be direct. Don't beat around the don't beat around the bush. People a lot of times, you know, if they may not get the message if you aren't completely direct. Give specific examples of behaviors that concern you. You can't just say, "Look, I don't like your behavior. I don't like your attitude. You know, I don't like the things that you do." Be specific. I don't like the way you treat your coworkers. I don't like the fact that this is a problem. So you need to give them specific examples of what the issues are, and use I statements. And we're going to talk a little bit about what are I statements. And be consistent in expressing concern and willingness to help. As a boss or as a leader, you want to set this up as, I am concerned about you. The company is concerned about you. We would like things to work well here and work well for you. And we're willing to help you to achieve that, but there's some things that we need to do. But you want to let that person know that you're approaching them with concern about their welfare and about their future with the organization. And maybe you need to restate if they don't get the message, or maybe it's not clear. You may need to restate it or say something differently. And there are some people who need things to be explained explicitly. I mean, very detailed, black and white, very clear. Some people just don't get it if you're not very clear. And then there's some people who take your words as literal, so you got to be careful what you say to them. And they'll say, "Oh, you know." You hear people say things like, "We're going to take this outside." Okay, well, let's go outside then. You know, whatever you say, they're going to think that's exactly what you mean. So again, be careful what words you use and how you approach your employees when you're having some difficult conversations. Okay, ESL, English as a second language. Again, we're going to be dealing with a lot of people whose primary language is not English. Have any of you, anybody in here speak a second or third language? Raise your hand if you speak another language. Sign language? Oh, good. Anybody speak any other language? Okay. Well, if you were to ever study and try to learn another language, it is not easy. It is very, very difficult. And so we may tend to get frustrated with some of the immigrants who come to the United States and they don't speak English, or we have a hard time understanding them. If you've never tried it, it is extremely difficult. So some of these people may be doing the best that they can at this time, and others maybe just don't have the aptitude to learn the language. So that's where we need to be a little bit empathetic and compassionate. So when you're talking with people whose language or first language is not English, use very basic words, speak slowly, look at them straight in the face clearly, because if you say, do you understand, they're going to nod yes, because they don't want to tell you that they didn't get it. You know, they don't want to look stupid, and they also don't want you to feel bad because you didn't convey your message clearly to them. So they're going to nod yes, but they have no idea what you said. So you need to be very, very careful when you're talking with people who do not speak English as a first language to make sure they really do understand what you're telling them. Now, I statements, when we use an I statement, it lets you share what you were thinking and feeling. For example, here are a couple of statements. You know that's not right. I see it differently than you. So now if you say to someone, you know that's not right, that's like an accusation. And again, they're going to be defensive. If you say, this person says something and you say, well, I see it differently than you. You're saying the same thing, but you're saying it in a way where you're inviting dialogue and discussion. You're not shutting them down with an accusation. You are not listening to me. I don't feel I'm being heard. So the I statements phrase the thing in a way where we are opening up for discussion and encouraging that person to talk with us. If you say it as an accusation, then you're going to wind up either the person shutting down or becoming very angry. And you're not going to resolve whatever that issue was. Okay, dealing with emotions, recognition. So maybe we recognize either through what they're saying or their nonverbal behavior that there is an emotional situation, that there's a problem. So we recognize that. For example, okay. Okay, so then we say acknowledgement. I can see that you're angry. Permission. It's okay to be upset. Understanding. I want to find out what's making you so miserable. And then diffusing. I can see why you're frustrated because you worked so hard on that project. Diffusing is, okay, I understand you, and you're acknowledging, you know, that person put a lot of time and effort into a project, something happened and it didn't work out, so they're upset. So I see that you're upset. It's okay to be upset. I want to know what's making you miserable. Oh, you worked a lot on that project. Yeah, of course you're upset. So those are ways to deal with people who have emotions. You don't just go up and say, oh, you know, don't be so upset, it'll work out. No, you want to acknowledge that what they're feeling, give them permission to feel that, and then work through that problem with them so that they feel that they're being heard and understood. Okay, if an issue being discussed can't be resolved, and sometimes that happens, you have some situations where there are conflicts in the workplace and you can't resolve it with one discussion or one meeting. So allow yourself and your conversation partner or the employee or whoever it is to take some time to think. You can just say, okay, well, I don't think we're going to get this resolved right now. Let's take some time and we'll come back tomorrow or we'll come back later this afternoon and we'll pick it up again. And then regardless of your feelings, always provide the person with basic courtesy and respect. This is one of the biggest problems that we are seeing in the workplace at New Avenues. We do a lot of training on respect in the workplace because people are not being courteous and respectful to one another. So we always want to, especially as leaders, you want to show courtesy and respect. And some issues just can't be worked out, so it's reasonable to cool off, disagree, and maybe seek professional help to get a professional mediator or a counselor to come in and help with that particular, with whatever those problems are. Then handling difficult questions. This is something that as leaders you're also going to run into. There's always going to be some issue going on in the workplace. Some problem or something that employees want to know, and sometimes it may be something that you don't know enough about, or maybe you really can't divulge a lot of information at the time, but you still need to talk with that employee about it and answer their questions as best you can. So let's say an employee has heard through the rumor mill that there are going to be budget cuts. So the county's going to have budget cuts. They've heard about this. And so they'll say, oh, you know, I hear there are going to be budget cuts. And so, you know, rather than saying yes or no, you can say, are you wondering if our department is going to be affected by the budget cuts? I mean, what is the real concern here? Not that the county's going to have budget cuts, but am I going to be affected by those budget cuts? And so you're saying, are you wondering if our department is going to be affected by budget cuts? That's a very good question. Why are you asking? Are you concerned about getting the new equipment we discussed, or do you have other concerns? I'm not sure how or even if we'll be affected, but I will look into it and let you know next week. Or I'm not sure of the exact procedure, but I will look into it for you and have an answer next week. So you want to kind of try to figure out what is the real question, and then kind of phrase that back to the person and say, maybe you know, maybe you don't know. If you don't know, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I can look into it and see what I can find out for you. And then sometimes if there are things going on and the rumor mill gets going, you may not be able to give them an answer, but at least get back with them and tell them something. That, you know, I've looked into it, we're not sure, but as soon as something becomes clear, we'll let you know. Okay, written communication. If it's important, write it down. So if you have important information, employees come to you, or things that you know that you need to take care of, write it down. We only remember about 30% of what someone else says with accuracy. And this leaves a large margin for error. And you see this all the time. Somebody says, I told you about that meeting, or I told you I wanted that vacation day. Well, I don't remember that. I thought you said this date. No, I told you such and such. So, you know, make sure that kind of thing that you make a note, that you write it down. Email. Okay. Emails they can be a blessing and they can be a curse. Have any of you ever had a problem where an email has gone somewhere it shouldn't have gone? That you didn't intend a certain person or it to go somewhere and it did? Yeah, this happens. So we're going to talk a little bit about email. First of all, always type an email in upper and lower case. If you use all caps, it's seen as aggressive and it's like shouting. Some people do that. And they may not mean it, but it comes off as being shouting or as aggressive. Be careful what you say about your employer or coworkers in an email, as you have no control over where it will go or to whom it may go. And I have a couple stories about this that I'm going to tell you. And then don't send or forward long email chains. Why do you think we don't want to send or forward long email chains?
They don't need to know the whole discussion.
Okay. Right. Anything else? Any other reason? Okay, well, I'll tell you a couple things. Did somebody have a... Yeah, could be. Okay, so two things. Be careful what you say about your employer or your coworkers in an email, because you may be emailing another person and you know, carrying on about your boss or the company, the county, whatever. that email could wind up going to someone else, you know, the person that you're talking about. Also, these emails, oftentimes people send jokes or sometimes, you know, kind of shady material in an email. And a lot of times that stuff will go outside of the organization to somebody else. And so you have people outside of your organization seeing emails where people are complaining about the employer, complaining about employees, or maybe with material in that email that shouldn't be there. And so the people outside get that, oh, it came from the county. Well, then people start to say, how come county employees have all this time to be sending jokes and doing all this stuff? It's also very bad PR for your organization if emails are going around with people complaining about the organization and about the people in it. So you want to be really, really careful what you're putting in emails. And again, as I said, once that email you hit send, you have no control over where that information goes. Now, this thing about the long chain emails, this actually happened. I was working in a company several years ago, and the director of the division I was working in had sent me an email saying, Nancy, I want you to do such and such, such and such. And it was sort of like, you know, a quick email, and it didn't have a whole lot of detail. And I'm thinking, where did this come from? You know, I'm not sure what context this is supposed to be. So I start scrolling down the email, and it was a very long email that had started out from him to the plant manager to somebody else, to the human resource director, to somebody else. And all these emails had gone back with all these people. And then he had taken that same email and he emailed some instructions to me. When I went all the way down to the bottom, I read that they were planning to shut the plant down where I was working. Now, nobody knew this. This was very, very confidential. But it was in that email. And I never should have received that email. But I saw that, and I mean, I was in shock because they had said nothing was going to happen to this particular division. And there were all the plans to shut it down. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I was in human resources, and I don't open my mouth. I didn't say a word to anybody. And but what if that had gone to somebody in customer service? What if it had gone to somebody else who would have just spread that all over the place in no time? That would have been a disaster. So you've got to be really careful because we don't know. People forward and forward and forward, and there could be information on there that really, like in this case, should never have come to me at that time. Okay, let's see. Keep humor out of emails, and the reason is because it's impossible to see for people to determine. Everybody's sense of humor is a little bit different. And so you think you're being funny, but people may see it as sarcastic, they may see it as rude, they may not see it as joking. So again, we have to be very careful about how we are communicating with people and really look for ways. I always reread everything to check for my tone and to see if there's any way this could be misinterpreted. Because if there's a way to misinterpret it, somebody's going to misinterpret it. Okay, so here's a summary of communication. Be willing to listen to others. Establish appropriate setting for good listening. So if someone has an important message, find a quiet place and shut the door. Have some privacy. Don't be judgmental. Hear them out. Commit to be open and honest, and be fully present. Don't be planning the dinner menu. Don't be thinking about what you got to do next or where you're going to go to lunch while they're telling you something that they really want you to hear. And maintain eye contact, and always try to be aware of your body language. And communicate clearly and directly, and say what you mean. Make statements in addition to asking questions. And stick to the main issue. Encourage the person to elaborate or clarify if you need it. And then you want to paraphrase for accuracy. Whatever someone tells you, paraphrase that back to them. Say, I hear you saying that you don't think you can work 7 days this week or 6 days this week. And reflect back their feelings. It sounds like you're feeling, unappreciated. Whatever it is that you think, and empathize with them. And then disclose your own needs and concerns. I understand that you feel overwhelmed with this work project. We really need to get it done. Let's look at some way that we can help you finish this project, because it's very important for our office that this gets done. And then express praise and appreciation often. When Luann was talking about rewards, that leaders provide rewards, a lot of times people just want to be appreciated. They just want to know that the effort that they put in, somebody appreciates it, that it's worth it. And it is so frustrating. I'm sure everyone in this room has been in a situation where it would have been nice for somebody to have said, gee, thanks for the extra effort, or a pat on the back, because that was really, you went above and beyond the call of duty. A lot of times people are not looking for the monetary reward or the gift. They just want acknowledgement and appreciation for what they have, the effort, that their value to the organization is being recognized. Allow others to finish their thoughts. Don't interrupt them. Respect other people's feelings and views, even if they differ from your own. Again, you don't have to agree, but just listen and hear them out. Okay, and then this is Luann. Anyway, as I think you all realize how important communication is. And it is really a pillar of leadership. If you cannot communicate clearly and directly, you're going to have a really hard time leading your people and having a cohesive team. So always think when you have something to communicate or to relay to them, don't be like my boss running past the office and yelling the instructions in the door as she goes down the hallway. You know, people, you can't assume that people understand what you're talking about. Operate on the assumption that they don't have any idea, and then give them clear instructions on what it is you want them to do, what your expectations are, where can they get the materials and the things that they need to do it, because that's the other part of it. Okay.
Okay. So this is, we're going to tie everything up here, okay? We're going to get, it's a long time to sit. I'm not the most generous, you know, with a lot of energy in this, but we're gonna get to. So it's just, as a leader, how do you stay effective? Okay, so you know, sometimes we feel like we're on that hamster on that wheel, and we're just going and going and going, and that's not a good thing. I mean, we need to stay energized and utilize change. Does anyone have any something that they can contribute? How do you stay energized? Or maybe you don't. Any input?
I set goals for the day. I make a list of things that I need to get accomplished, and so it's like, okay, I've only got 2 more to go, and
Okay, that's a good way. Okay, because when you cross everything off, it's a good feeling. Okay, so you don't feel bogged down, and you can go to the next thing. That's a good one. Okay, the other thing is that it's important to utilize change. Most of us don't like change. Okay, we say we do, but when I do my stress seminar, okay, I tell them the reaction to change is stress. That's what stress is, okay? So everything's changing all the time, which is why, we kind of deal with that stress all the time. So, but think of it in a positive aspect, that this change can really help, and lead us in a better direction, and all of those kinds of things. So at times when we think that change isn't the greatest thing, and it does stress us out, think of that positive part of change. Okay, so I think it's important as leaders to sharpen the saw. Okay, we need to take care of ourselves. We can't be effective leaders if we haven't taken care of ourselves. And so we get back to all of the kinds of things that we talk about. I talk about this all the time in stress management, but that we need to energize ourselves both physically, spiritually, mentally, socially, emotionally. Okay, so it means all those things we always talk about: eating well, exercise, getting enough sleep, all of those things that we talk about for our physical health. It's for our emotional health too. And I can't repeat it enough. The physical part of just staying active. I think that as leaders, oftentimes we are so busy. We have so many responsibilities. We have so much to balance that we don't take time for ourselves. We don't do that walk we should take. We don't maybe visit the gym or whatever. And instead of making the excuse, I always suggest that you put it into your daily schedule. Okay, even if it's the last 15 minutes of the lunch, okay, or something, that now that the weather's nicer, that you get outside and you walk around the block a couple times or something like that. But it's just important. It clears your head. It just, it helps you become that better leader. And it's just very important that you have a social network. I think that, as leaders, oftentimes we take care of everybody else and we don't always take care of ourselves. And so it's important that we develop a social network of friends, of spirituality, whatever it is that helps us. It might just making time to read a good book. It doesn't have it for each of us. It's something a little bit different. Maybe it's going to church. Maybe it's not going to church. It's going to be different for everybody on that. Just think about what you're doing to energize yourself as a leader. And if you're not doing enough, make some points of what I can do to do that. So, in summary, effective leaders must be able to demonstrate competency so we know what we're doing, okay? Communicate clearly, and we've just talked about how important that is, and not only, just remember, okay, it's written all over me now. 10% is all what I'm saying. It's only 10%, okay? The rest of it is everything else, okay? Teach. Be good listeners. That's all a part of that communication. Treat others with dignity and respect, and continue to learn. That's just so important. Effective leaders must be able to set the example, set and reinforce standards, create energy, and display that edge. That's that person that stands out from everybody else. That's your person, okay? They do the edge that you were talking about, the young gal, okay? And so winning organizations win because they have good leaders who develop leadership, develop at all levels of the organization. They don't just win today, they keep winning. So they keep developing leaders from the bottom all the way up, and they teach others to be leaders, to build an organization that remains successful when you're not around. Okay, so when the leader leaves, and everybody goes, boss is gone, Okay, you want to kind of get to that thing where it's okay that the boss is gone. We can still do what we're doing, and whether the boss is here or not, Okay, so the cat's away, the mouse will play. We don't want that to happen, okay. And just one quote from John Quincy Adams here: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you're a leader. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, you have an evaluation form in here. If you'll just fill that out for us, put it on the table on your way out, we'd appreciate it. Does anyone have any questions? I know this is a long time to sit. Okay. Well, thank you for all of your attention and your cooperation. We really appreciate it. So, thank you.
We particularly appreciate you participating, because so many times give a presentation and everybody just sits there and nobody has the courage to get up and say anything or participate, but we can tell you're all leaders because you do. So thank you for that. It makes it so much more rewarding for everybody in the group if people participate.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank New Avenues. I think it was an informative session. Leadership is such an important quality to have and to grow. I want to remind all of you that Budget and Finance 1 is coming up before each of your district meetings. That registration is open. Budget and Finance 2 will be held on May 21st at French Lick on the Tuesday afternoon before the Auditors Conference. The Budget and Finance 1 will not be recorded, so if you want to participate, you will need to participate. If you can't do it on your day of district meeting, you're welcome to do it at any one of the 6. There are 6 different days that we're doing Budget and Finance 1. Budget and Finance 2 will be coming up on, it will be recorded, and then on June, I believe it's June 10th, we'll be doing legal and ethical prior to the clerk's meeting up at Keystone at the Crossing, and on June 28th we will be doing, oh, I apologize, it just left me. Jail population. How to reduce jail population on Friday afternoon prior to the county council's annual meeting. So all good topics, a lot of knowledge out there. Again, I thank all of you for coming. Thank New Avenues for coming. Enjoy the Recorders Conference, and for those of you going home, safe travels.